everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. We're going to be painting this adorable Highland, baby Highland cow today. And as I always recommend, watch it through once, and then as you play it again when you paint along, just pause it where you need to and replay where you need to. That's one of the beauties of taking a class. Before we start, I really have to just show you these two brushes. So they're the exact same brush. One is just well loved. And I paint the whole thing using this brush. If you've been in my class before, then you know that I am a one brush person for the most part. I will switch out once in a while, but the size 12 Princeton snap brush is my go-to brush 80% of the time. So we're just going to jump right in. We are starting with a wet on dry technique using raw sienna and beige. And the two tips I'm going to give you for this specific painting is to keep your brush strokes in the similar fashion of the fur, which I'll explain more in a minute, and to layer. So we are going to be layering in colors and shadowing and stuff. So the whole entire painting, there's a lot of layering in this painting, and we're starting with the lightest colors. So what I mean by keeping your brush strokes in the same pattern as a fur is, so if you think about, like, let's say the bangs part. I know they're not called bangs on the cow, but the part that I started off with, the bangs, I didn't do like short brush strokes. My brush stroke literally imitated the fur. So it was in the same direction and the same length. My brush stroke was the same length as that fur. And it's really important with watercolor because you see those brush strokes. So if you kept them short or you went sideways, then you would see that and it wouldn't look like fur. Just like right now, as I go around the muzzle, I'm using thinner, shorter brush strokes because the fur around there is a little bit thinner. And I am just kind of filling in everything, the base color for this little girl. She is adorable. She, people with the Highland cows, right? I'm one of those people. I don't know what it is. They're just so cute. But anyways, do Highland cows produce milk? I assume they do, right? You're probably like, oh my God, Tina, stupid question. Uh, just like, what does Highland cow milk taste like? Anyways, I digress. So as you can see here, I'm literally emulating the brush strokes towards the fur. So shorter fur equals shorter brush strokes. And I'm just starting in with the lighter colors, and I will go in and add the darker colors later. So if you start doing it this way, where you're doing the lighter shades and keeping the brush strokes similar to the fur, you should be pretty good. This is pretty much the entire technique for the entire thing. Of course, when we get to the eyes and the flowers and stuff, it'll be a little bit different. But for the fur, that is the technique. And you could do it a little bit darker if you want. If you want your Highland cow to be a little bit more brown, if you want it to be more of a ruddy color, if you want it to be more blonde. This is just the colors I went with, and the picture I got this from one of those, like, I was on Pinterest and I found this, and then it was like an AI generated image. I was like, this would be cute, not an AI generated. So and then I kind of tweaked it a bit from there. So it's just one of those images that you can change however you want. You could change the flowers, you can do no flowers, whatever it is you want. So the fur around the muzzle, I am doing, if you, I don't know how I'm going to explain this. So I'm leaving the gaps in the base of the muzzle because I'm not going to be painting white or cream fur over. So I'm working and using the negative space. So when you look at her muzzle, it looks like the white of the paper, it looks like it's fur. I'm doing such a horrible job of explaining this. I apologize. So hopefully that made sense. I feel like that didn't make any sense at all. But I didn't do like a straight line around her muzzle. I kept it kind of staggered with the brush stroke, so it looks like fur. Hopefully that made sense. So now we're just doing the little tufts of hair above her crown of flowers. Don't forget this part, otherwise she'll look kind of weird without that fur on top of her head. I almost forgot it, so that's why I'm telling you not to forget it. Um, and then, of course, we are going to do her little tiny horns. Her horns are going to be a similar color. I'm just going to wash it down a bit. When I say wash it down, wash the color I'm using a bit. So one of my students just got a Highland cow, and she's been posting pictures. The name is Cinnamon. She's absolutely adorable. She's been posting pictures of her, and she's so cute. And of course, she's a baby. It's so adorable. I love that we have them out here. So I am using sepia for the inside of the ear because it's a little bit darker, and doing a little bit of underneath where the ear meets her head, because obviously that's going to be a little bit denser in fur and you want that shadowing. So I'm doing a little bit of that darker color, and I'm also adding a couple of brush strokes here and there to just kind of create separation within the fur. Specifically, you want to do some more underneath where the flowers meet her head because you want that shadowing there. But this is kind of where she gets that kind of Fabio-esque type hairdo, because you're giving her a little bit more definition in the fur. I don't quite love the way this is turning out right now for myself, so I will go through and soften it a bit. It's just way too piecemeal for me. But I do want to get that kind of in there first. So her lashes are very important. That kind of is what gives her that big bright-eyed puppy dog look. It's, got to have it on the top and the bottom, just a little bit. You don't want to overkill it. You don't want to make it look like she's got falsies on. Falsies. I know. I tell my son, my 17-year-old, to stop mumbling, and I know he learned it from me because I am a mumbler. But yeah, you want to give her these cute little lashes just to kind of make her. You can see, even though I don't have her eyes completely done, you can see that it's already starting to have that like bright-eyed, doe-eyed look with the lashes there. It's just like that alone, I feel like, is so important. So do not forget her lashes. And if you feel like you need to do that with a micron pen or a smaller brush, by all means, please do that. Don't try to use one brush for the whole entire thing just because I do. I want you to do what works for you. This is not like a specialty technique where you're going to get better just because you use one brush. It's just what works for different people. So I'm going in and adding more darker colors throughout her fur. And I'm concentrating that dark color in the middle here because it's where it's darker. I know that was very, very informative there. Thanks, Tina. And that's pretty much her fur. And I don't know if you can see a little bit better now around her muzzle, what I was talking about, how the light of the paper, using the white of the paper to make it lighter helps. Hopefully. So I am prepping this painting. This is going to be a paint night painting here in the New England area. And so I am keeping this quite a bit simpler than I would if I were just doing this by itself. So it is a little bit simpler than I would be doing. And I just softened that fur there by adding a little bit of beige throughout that, so it's not so piecemeal. And I think that really helped it a lot. So now I'm just taking that same color and watering it down a lot, so I can do that light color for her little horns. It's the same color I've been using for her fur, just way watered down. All right, so now I'm using that exact same color for the eyes. So for the color of her eyes, and I just want to keep her eyes light. You can do whatever you want, of course, but I want it to match her horns. And then you want to wait for that part to dry before you do her pupils and stuff, because you obviously don't want that black of the pupil to bleed into the rest of her eye, because then you'll lose that effect. Okay, so now we're going to do the flowers, and I'm approaching the flowers the same way I'm kind of the rest of with doing lighter layers. You can do whatever color you want. I wanted to kind of keep everything in the earth tone family, so I'm really just using variations of the colors I already have. Maybe adding a little bit orange or red here and there. But I really wanted to keep this kind of monochromatic look for her, so I kept all my flowers in these mustardy brown autumn colors. I'm also going to be doing this paint night in November, so I think that's also why I wanted to keep these colors, because I just want to make it look more fall than not. And then I did some of I was going to say the pupils of of the flowers. Pupus, is that what it's called? I am sure I just made that up. So I just added that, and then once it dries, I'll go back and add some more color. Now, for her mouth part, it's the same thing as her skin tone, but I'm doing a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pink to that so that her muzzle has a little bit of that pink tone to it. And then I'm doing her little nostrils, but I'm going to be layering those colors in, and then, of course, making it darker on the inside of her nostrils to give her that depth in her nose so her nose doesn't look completely flat. I think it's really funny how they have like a frown, but they look so cute. Um, and then using a light wash to just kind of shadow in her nose and leaving a little bit of that white paper at the top so that it has a little bit of that highlight and doesn't look flat. So now for the pupil, I am taking black paint and doing a color around the black paint, like little circles, so that it's easier for me to paint the pupils afterwards. Those are the pinpoint reflections. Super important to have those pinpoints in there. That's what makes our eyes look a little bit more doughy. If for some reason you're struggling with that, you can use a white gel pen or bleed proof white or even white gouache after to just do little white pinpoints. But oh my gosh, how much does this just make her just have that cute, doughy, adorable puppy dog look? This did it, right? The pupils. It's all about the pupils. Her eyes. Her eyes are the key to giving her that adorable look. So make sure you have those pinpoints in there, in all three, because that's really, really, really what gives her that little pop. And I am using black because I really want her eyes to just be like, bam, there's her eyes. I don't want it to be subtle. I want her eyes to be big and bright and just kind of really stand out. So that's why I have I'm using the black. And I am going to end up using black over her eyelids too, just to give her a little bit more depth. When I say eyelids, like that inner crease part, just because I really, really want her eyes to pop. She's so cute. She is so cute. It's really about the eyes. See, once I did the eyes and the rest of it, just, you're like, okay, once the eyes are done. So take your time with the eyes. Really don't rush this part because you want to get it right. Even when I paint pet portraits, I always tell people to focus on the eyes. When I teach pet portrait classes, so I teach it in reverse, but I do it on purpose. So when I teach my pet portrait classes, what I tell people is to end with the eyes. And the reason being is because we want to be able to get I want people to get their feet wet, right, with the painting. So I'm making sure that they're comfortable with the brush strokes and the colors and the paints and stuff. Because I do have people who have never painted watercolors or watercolors with me before taking a pet portrait class. So I leave the eyes for the very end. So once they're kind of comfortable, they've gotten their feet wet, they're more adept with everything, then we get into the eyes. But I tell people, when you're painting pet portraits at home, you start with the eyes because they're the most important thing. And when you start with the eyes, if you mess up to the point where you can't come back from it, then you can start over and don't feel so bad because you have to repaint the entire thing. I always say start with the hardest thing at home so that you can, because I feel like if you don't and you wait till the end, you just stress yourself out trying to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess this up. I don't know what to do. So it's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. That's why I tell people to start with it, because you want to do the hardest thing first and get it out of the way. So I'm just going through and filling out these flowers with different colors and just kind of giving her mouth a little bit more definition, putting a little bit more shadowing in her nostrils just so it doesn't look so flat, and adding a little bit more of the details. So at this point in my painting, what I'm doing, besides just looking at her so cute eyes, is just going through and looking at it and being like, okay, where do I need to really add some color or volume or depth or value or whatever you want to call it. We're just going through and adding the details. And of course, I got to finish up these flowers. So I'm adding a lot of the greenery right now. So I'm adding the leaves, I'm adding the stems. A lot of it's freehand done. So I'm kind of just filling it in and being like, okay, where do I need to add some more leaves? Where do I need to add some more greens? and that is, and you just kind of want to paint, take a step back, look at it, see where you need to fill it in a little bit more. Uh, and obviously I'm looking at this right now like, okay, she's very, very bare in the bottom. So I will be adding a lot of green. And that's what I'm really going to be doing for the rest of the painting. And just adding a few more details here and there. But that's pretty much it for the painting. Let me know how you did with it. Um, and if you name yours, I would love to know what you name your little Highland cow. And I think she is just, like I said, she is so, so cute. And let me know, when are you painting this? Even though I'm going to be doing this class in November, it actually kind of feels like November outside right now. I'm here in northern New England, and the leaves are starting to change. We have maple trees out in this little grassy area in front of my art studio. I have huge windows in my art studio, so I can see these big, beautiful trees, and they are starting to change color. I mean, it's middle of August. It always feels like it's really early. They're gonna really start taking their time to change colors, but yeah, our leaves are starting to change. I don't know if that means we're in for another harsh winter. We had a really harsh winter last year, but we will see. The leaves are starting to change, and they're going to be falling soon, and pretty soon it will be sweater weather, and I am ready. I love the fall here. I am absolutely obsessed with it. Um, I don't know. I have my reasons. I feel like it's just that time where you just start to slow down. I love the winter here because it's just quiet and an excuse to stay in and paint or read or just bake and just be cozy. And it's just you open the door and it's just so quiet. But really, I like all the seasons. But it's starting to change here, and so painting this felt kind of on par. Um, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed this painting. I will let music play for the rest of the painting so you can just enjoy it, and let me know how it went for you. Until next time.